Hey, welcome along, Southside people and others. Nearly did the welcome to Southside Uniting Time for Kids. That's tomorrow. And this is today. Welcome along. It's Tuesday, not Wednesday. And great to have you all here. We chat each week a bit about ministry with young people and children and families and all those sorts of things, and ministry in general, because, of course, the things that apply to ministry with young people generally applies to the whole of the church. So there you go. Welcome along. Good to have you. If you're joining in as a regular, welcome along. If you're new, if you've just been bumbling through Facebook and gone, what is this exciting thing that's happening? I'm Richard Moores, the Children's Youth and Families Pastor for Southside Uniting Church, which is in Brisbane. Meets on land that the Yagara and the Turrbal people are traditional custodians of. We pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. Pray for conciliation between us and them, and reconciliation between all peoples and God. So welcome along. So we talk about things to do with children's, youth, and families pastor. We also have a competition each week. I do a movie quote. See if you know where it comes from. I can't remember what our quote was last week, but I don't think anyone got it. No. Can't remember what it was even. That's shocking, is it? Don't know what the movie quote was. So I need to now look over at my movies. Here we... No, that's not going to work. Here's a movie quote. Ready? Qantas never crashed. Gotta go Qantas. There you go. What movie did that come from? Gotta go Qantas. Qantas never crashed. Could also have gotta go to Kmart. Gotta go to Kmart. Boxer shop from Kmart. Gotta go to Kmart. What movie does that come from? If you know, pop it in the little box. If you're watching this later on YouTube and no one else is there, pop it in the box. You could win a prize. Gotta go to Kmart. Oh, Kylie's quick on the thing. And Kylie, apparently you're an anniversary follower. Whatever that means. Does that mean you've watched it so many times? There you go. The things you discover as you're doing live broadcasts. People can be anniversary followers. So, the last number of weeks, we've been looking at some material put together by Andrew Root, who is youth worker and lecturer and member of staff, lecturer in youth ministry at Luther Seminary in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Been looking at some things, thinking out of Charles Taylor and out of Rosa, forget his first name, two philosophers, Charles Taylor, Canadian Catholic, Rosa, a German, more presumably Lutheran, Protestant type background. And the course, because I've never used the course's real name, yes, it's still Rayman. And Kylie's still an anniversary follower. Anyway, the course was actually called Religion and Spiritual Crisis, particularly drawing on a lot of the work Andy Root's been doing around secular age, coming out of Charles Taylor. But, so, the first few weeks we looked at some of the material from Charles Taylor, and the last 2 weeks we've been exploring some stuff from Rosa. And Rosa particularly picking up on that sense of acceleration we have in life, which doesn't surprise any of us. We're going, yeah, we're all getting faster. And Rosa talks about, can you do the three? Ready. Rosa talks about acceleration in technology. So the rate of how technology is going. Talks about acceleration in social life, and particularly that sense of the rate of decay, how long it takes something to no longer be off today. So, you know, those wonderful terms you use and your children look at you and go, I mean, it's fab, or whatever word that you used when you were young, that's no longer of today. Computers have a very quick decay rate. And that acceleration in the pace of life. Technology was meant to make things easy and we have this relaxed time, but it's just sped everything up. And so that thinking of, as we get caught up in that, you know, everything speeding up leads to alienation. Leads to alienation for ourselves, leads to alienation from the world. And so what Rosa suggests we need is resonance. And for Rosa, resonance is an action. And so we need to do this, resonance, connecting with people. So if we're getting alienation, separation from people, we need resonance where we connect and with things. And Rosa suggests there's two parts of resonance, and both have two subpoints for them. Obviously not a good church preacher because it's always a 3-point sermon. You might have 3 subpoints. This is 2. Anyway, I won't get sidetracked. I'm picking up. I'm tired. Ollie got up for some reason at 10:30 last night, went to the toilet, and then I discovered him lying on the couch. And it's like, what's wrong? Nothing. Not sure if he went for a little sleep wander or not. Who knows? Anyway, better not say any more or he'll hear me talking about him and I'll get into trouble. Shh, don't tell him I told you. Shh, don't. Anyway, so resonance. What is resonance about? Firstly, Rosa says it's a phenomenological thing. I knew I was going to stumble over all these words. Phenomenological. So it's something that you encounter. So you encounter this, you reach it. And under that are 2 subpoints of affection and emotion. So as we encounter resonance, we start to have affection. We start to fall in love with someone or something. We get that resonance, get that connection. And so that affection leads us to look outside of ourselves. So resonance leads to looking outside of ourselves. The acceleration tends to, we look in. What are we getting? What do I have? How can I get more? Resonance, how do I look outside? How do I actually go to love those around me? How do I love things that are around me? So we get that affection. And Taylor, linking back to Taylor, Andy says, Taylor says you've got to understand yourself, but you've got to get out of yourself as well. So this is the affection draws you out of yourself. But linked with that, the phenomenological, so we have affection drawing out, and we have emotion. So it's something we feel as we discover this. We feel it. We have gratitude, or we have connection. This sense of resonance. It's a feeling. So these 2 arms, and in that sense, you need both. So you need to have a feeling, but you also need to have affection reaching out. It can't just all be about emotional. And in a sense, sometimes the church has been good at the emotional. How do you build the music up so that you come to this point of, if you've ever, I know I've been to rallies and evangelistic rallies, and the speaker's speaking on, and as he gets towards the music kicks in and starts to swell as he comes to the altar call, and the emotion that because music brings emotion, and of course these people flood forward because we've developed this wonderful emotional moment. Andy Root was telling the story of he used to work with Young Life, and they'd do summer camp, and he says, as with vacation holiday clubs all over the place, you have Thursday is Kill Jesus Day, and if you think about most holiday clubs, yes it is. Thursday's when you look at the cross, resurrection. Got to get to the Jesus died for you. So it's Kill Jesus Thursday. And he said, you would have, they would show Michael W. Smith's Secret Ambition film clip, and you'd have people, boys, girls in tears, and yes, I'm going to convert, I'm going to follow this Jesus. And then half an hour later, they're in the, I think he said 40-person hot tub, groping, and it's a sense of, we've had this emotion, but has it really led to change? Emotion, but without affection. No, there's no drawing. I'm drawn into this other thing. I'm drawn to connect with this faith gospel stuff. It's just, I'm in this emotional moment. I make a decision. And I guess as you look at the church, as you look at youth ministry, that's the challenge that we face. It's easy to go, oh, let's make this emotional moment where people come forward. But is it any deeper than this emotional moment? How do we make it deeper in something serious? And I guess that would be one of my critiques of that form of evangelism. It's easy to go, yes, in this emotional moment, we caused 100 people to walk down the front. But what's the ongoing response of those people after they walk out of here? In a week's time, in a month's time, in a year's time, in 10 years' time, is this faith still something that's real? Because if not, we had a lovely emotional moment. Off my hobby horse. So resonance will cause emotion within us, feelings. It will also cause affection. We will connect in with others. And Andy Root, presumably from Rosa, suggests that in this sense, all happens against our will to some degree. We're in this experience and we have this emotional turn and we do this. So phenomenological with affection and emotion. The other element is efficacy. So we're phenomenological, this thing just causes me to go and I'm just taken away with it. Efficacy, you feel that your own agency is important. And you feel that you can make a difference. So, I can actually do something. I'm actually worth something. It's not just I get caught up in a moment and I'm gone. I can input in something into this resonance. And in a sense, he says you need both. And Rose apparently uses the image of a tuning fork, that if you bang one tuning fork and hold it, and then bring another one, at first the other one will just sit there, but the one that's buzzing will start to cause the other one to resonate. And initially, the other one will be at its own frequency, but eventually they'll come into sync. So in that sense, you need both. You need the phenomenological, you need the efficacy, you need the affection and the emotion and all these things. So both and, not either or. So efficacy, two elements, elusive and transformation. So elusive, or Andy Root says that Rosa seems to be still working on his language and maybe thinking unavailability, but it's that sense of you cannot control it. That you might try to set up a situation for resonance to occur. This resonance of all this I guess in the churches, this resonance with God, this feeling of God, this moment. You can set up things that might head you towards it, but you're not guaranteed it's going to happen. You can have all the best will in the world, but it doesn't mean, bam, people are going to go, struck by God in this moment. Which can be frightening and can be freeing. So it's frightening if I want people to have this connection with God, how can I do it? I can't guarantee it's going to happen. How do I do it? But it's also that freeing of, it's not up to me. I can't control this. This has to be God showing up into people's lives. I can't control it. I do what I can. I provide opportunities for people to come and connect with God, but God is going to show up. And God is going to do that. Which is a continual reminder that we all need in ministry. It's actually not about me. It's about God. I'm just here for the ride. Talking about something like that on Sunday night, weren't we? Maybe. So you can do spiritual practices. You can do things that will point towards and allow spaces where resonance might occur. But you can't actually control it. So the efficacy, it's elusive. We can't control resonance. But it's also transformation. That resonance will change you. As you have resonance with others, as you have resonance with God, it will change you. If it's real, it's deep. If it's that affection, I suddenly have affection for God, that changes us. I'm caught up in this emotional moment. I have this affection for God. I understand this God who loves me. And I, in some way, love God. That has to change who I am and affect me. That transformation. And Andy Root says that's been one of the struggles for the Protestant church, particularly mainline Protestant churches. Well, what is that transformation? And that sense, well, is it the moral we want to get you in and transform you into this moral person that does all the right things. When I think about the church, when I think about my youth ministry, that's what transformation was. It was, how do we make you this sanctified person who does all the right things? But what is transforming in your life? That's part of the challenge for us to think through. To help us think through this resonance moments, Andy Root used 2 movie illustrations, neither of which I've seen. So if you've seen either of them, hopefully my description does it some justice. The first movie is a Disney movie, I think, or Pixar movie. Might have been Pixar. Soul. You might know it. So apparently in Soul, Joe wants to be a jazz musician, but he dies just as about he's having his big break. He wants to come back to life, but instead of coming back to life in his body, he comes back apparently as the cat. And another soul that's never lived before comes back as him, and it's Soul 22. And this soul that's never experienced is just mesmerized by everything around him. And Joe had been so busy on jazz that had been his life, that had been his sole focus. Boom, 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 boom. And so, Soul 22 in the body of Joe goes to get a haircut, and he starts chatting with the barber, and the barber's like, man, you always come, you talk about jazz, but you've never actually asked anything about me. What's happened? And it's that sense of, at the end of the movie, apparently he gets to be this great jazz musician, but, isn't there more? And Joe, the original Joe's soul, sort of goes before the judges, and he sort of goes, I realise there's something more, that it's actually about being connected. And so that speed of light, alienation, we're busy thinking through all these things that are going on in life. How do we keep all the balls in the air? How do we do all this stuff? If we're getting caught on with that, then we lose that connection with others. We suffer that alienation. Whereas life is about those connections. Ministry is about relationship and helping people relationship experience of God. And so the problem is, if we get caught up in the speed thing with ministry, we start to push people, you've got to do this, you've got to do that, and we lose that sense of connection. The other movie, which is apparently an Amazon Prime movie, is called... No, it wasn't called Brad Status. Or was it? Could have been called Brad Status. He had some other words on the screen, but I think that was probably the point he was making as opposed to... So I think the film's called Brad Status, with Ben Stiller. And so Ben Stiller's, at the start of the movie, his employee wants to quit, and he's sitting there and he's looking through a magazine, and he sees a college colleague who's having a wedding. He realises he hasn't been invited, and he starts to mull over, well, this guy's got everything, what have I got? And he starts to work out, well, what have the other colleagues I went through college with got? And what have I missed out? What have I done with my life? They all seem to have done so much more, have so much more. And then, towards the end of the movie, apparently he's going to look at colleges with his son and go and see which college, or we would say university, his son is going to go to. And he's so caught up with his thoughts of, what have I done with my life? Where am I? What have I done? He misses what his son's doing. And eventually they go to Harvard. And his dad's like, you're not going to get into Harvard. And his son says, well, one of my career advisor or something said, you've actually got a possibility. And that sort of jolts Ben Stiller's character Brad out for a moment. It's like, hang on, I might have a son who goes to Harvard. That's some status, I've got this sense. And then apparently the son's a musician, and Ben Stiller's character goes to this concert, I presume where the son is playing, and it's this moment for him and gets him out. And the music speaks to him. And it ends, he's almost in tears, and he ends up in the hotel room with his son, and his son's like, are you having a breakdown, Dad? What's going on? And his dad sort of explains, I've been so busy thinking about what everyone else have got. and what I don't have. And his son says, well, Dad, I was sort of thinking today, we're at Harvard and you were yelling at me, and I thought, if I got accepted, I wouldn't actually come here, because there would be people here who would have seen that, and what would they think of me? And then the son says, but then I realised, no one here would notice, because they're so busy thinking about themselves. And Dad, you shouldn't worry about what other people think, because they're busy thinking about themselves. The only person who is thinking about you is me. And Dad, I love you. That's that sense of, when we're in this world of acceleration, it's all about, what do I have? What have all my colleagues got? What have they achieved? What have I achieved? I've got nothing. And we all do that. I do that. You look at people in ministry who are younger than you, you go, oh, you've done that. Well, slightly older, oh, Andy Root, you've been writing books all these years. I've written nothing. I've written some, but haven't really published or anything. It's like, and you go, well, what have I done? You can easily get caught in that. But instead, when we have this resonance, we come in contact with the world, we come in contact with God, and we go, hey, there's something here. There is something more. And so resonance moves from having to possess to being. We don't have to have a whole heap more. We just have to be. That old saying in the church, I've heard around the church, one of the problems in life is we've become human doing instead of humans being. We're so busy doing stuff. And through the church, we're so busy doing more stuff, more ministries, more programs. How do we just be? How do we allow people to just sit and connect with God? To allow moments where resonance with God might actually happen. We're not jumping from one thing to the other, but we're just, here's a moment, here's an opportunity for you to connect with God. And so we need to provide this in ministry. We need this for us. So we've looked at this sense of the seculars, and that secular 3, where most people are today, with hints of the other seculars. Church mostly thinking in secular 2 brain, but most people in the community thinking in a secular 3 brain of the imminent frame. It's all about this world. And we're stuck in this imminent frame, and we're stuck in this accelerating imminent frame. How do I get more? How do I achieve? How do I get something? And because the imminent frame you realise you don't have, it's all about, what can I have in the future? How can I have a good life in the future? So we project it into the future so that we can have a hope of getting it. And the problem is, we're always racing after that. Resonance says, what do I have now? What do I experience now? What do I love now? Who do I love now? How do I experience this life? How do I open and have an open take to allow the influence of God to come into my life and into those moments? And that sense of, that can be risk. So it has to be, you have to risk to get resonance, because you can't control it. So you provide the opportunity where it might happen. Tripp tells then went on to discuss a lovely story about his son. Apparently, his son is obviously an awesome, awesome person. But apparently, when he was in preschool, he would only answer the name Edge, because he loved you too. And he had a beanie, he had a little blow-up guitar. He would only answer Edge from his parents. He would only answer the Edge from his preschool teachers, stuff like that. And on the weekends, they would listen to U2 live concerts and watch U2 live concerts, and they'd act out the concert. And Tripp Fuller says this went on for years, but he engaged with it and did it. And eventually, when his son was 10, he obviously got out of that sort of phase bit. But when he was 10, they were in LA, and U2 were coming to the Rose Bowl. And they went and saw the concert, and it was the Joshua Tree anniversary concert. So they went to the full of the Joshua Tree, and then the second half of the concert is sort of the best of bits of the last so many years. And he says, and they're going through, and he gets to the song of elevation, which is his son's favourite, and he just turns the phone around and, hey, they are in this moment, and here is this moment of resonance. And to some degree, okay, we've set that up because we've spent all that time as a child dancing and singing to U2. Done that. We've gone to the concert. But as Andy Root says, you could have just gone, well, look, concert tickets are really expensive, so we can't really afford to go. Or, you might have had a dodgy meal the night before and, you're just feeling sick and racing to the toilet every 5 minutes or whatever. You can't guarantee that moment is going to happen. But because you've done some groundwork, you get to that moment. I was chatting through some of this and some of what stuff for Sunday with DF today. And an analogy like that about spiritual practices from a book I've got. It'll be over there, and therefore I can't see it because I can't quite look on. No, I think it was not the one on contemplative prayer. But anyway, so the author's talking about, that sense of, think of this contemplative, we won't always feel that I've connected with God. But he uses the example of, he lives in North America and his garden. His garden gets frosted over and snowed over in winter. And you do a whole heap of work. So that a couple of times a year, in sort of spring, summer, a couple of times you walk out in the garden and go, wow. And your mind is blown. And that might be 2 or 3 times in the year. So for, the other 360 odd days, nothing, just hard work or whatever. But 3 or 4 times, wow. How do we do the hard work? How do we provide the spaces in our ministries where occasionally our young people, our old people will go, wow, connected with God? So I'm sure I've said here before, that's what I get at U2 concerts. Often. Not always. And I've noticed often, like, not the last tour, but the 2 tours before that, I've gone twice. And the first night is often, very much that spiritual moment of, the songs about faith, the way they've lined them up. It connects me with God, and I'm in that moment, I'm worshipping God. Not the God of U2, I'm worshipping God. The second night, they do a few different songs, and often it's more, okay, this is just a fun. We're having fun. We're celebrating that this is the second night. That sense of resonance. It's not guaranteed. So I went and saw the Joshua Tree tour, and that didn't give me that resonance. So yes, you can't control it, but we need to provide spaces where the people in our congregations, the people in our ministries might have that chance to connect with God. So there's our stuff on secular age, get the right term, religion and spiritual crisis. People are wanting to connect with God. How are we providing them spaces so they can get outside their imminent frame and to see the word that's just gone out of my brain? The wonderful God that is out there. Transcendence. Transcendent of God. Time for me to be quiet. Heaps for you to think about. Thinking next week we might explore a bit about how we interpret the Bible and how that affects us. Some stuff that's come out of last Sunday. But yeah, hopefully this stuff's been helpful. I love Andy Root and all his thinking. Some of it can be a bit heavy, some of his books, but love his thinking. If you want to borrow any, come and chat with me. Have a good week, and I will see you sometime around. Bye, everyone.